Greetings, hi, and hello everyone. My name is Jason Petitfrère. I'm a speaker, I'm a podcaster, and my life's work is centered around allowing the world to meet the true you by helping you think, speak, and eventually live better than yesterday. We do this first by establishing a good reason why, a strong and powerful motivation to keep going when the going gets rough. Second, we need awareness and acknowledgement of what's holding us back. And third, we need scalable steps forward as a reliable bridge between who we are right now and who we need to be tomorrow and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. This, my friends, is how you go from stuck to thinking as, speaking as, and living as the true you. Greetings. Hi and hello, everyone. Gentlemen, gentle ladies, boys and girls around the world, my friends and family who are in town and out. Thank you so very much for joining me on yet another episode of the TRU-U podcast. My name is Jason, and I would like to take these very short next few minutes to simply lay upon your bosom, your open heart, thine chest, these humble few nuggets that I've been kind of ruminating on lately, especially today, being Sunday, where I actually used it in a speech that I performed. Well, did I use it? I at least planned to use it. I don't think I ended up actually using it, but it laid the groundwork for what my speech actually was about, which is the topic of gaining or the power of fresh perspective. How oftentimes we feel stuck. So let me ask you, have you ever felt stuck in a situation, whether because of your own sticky bad habits or some sticky / unsavory persons that refuse to let you breathe? You know, people that you for some reason can't seem to shake. Maybe it's coworkers, maybe it's family members, or maybe it's really clingy friends. Whatever it is, it might be a person. What if it's your actual job? Not necessarily the people, but the thing that you do that you just feel like it's a dead end. Like there's no progress to it. There's no higher level for you to reach. There's no fulfillment. Right now, it just feels stagnant. Maybe it's that. Or maybe it's, your romantic relationship. It feels like it's dead, or it feels like it's actively dying. Do you just succumb to that? Do you just give up at that point? Or maybe, is it possible that all you need is a fresh perspective? Here are 3 things that I mentioned during my speech today. In performing my speech earlier with 2 of my fellow speakers, Martin and Dupre. In my speech, I spoke about a fresh perspective, and I used these 3 keys, which I'm going to share with you right now. And then at the end, I'm going to bring in 2 quotes that really inspired that. The 3 keys are these. Firstly, a fresh perspective demands humility. And here's why. In any time that you are seeking a fresh perspective, or you get to the place where you realize you need a fresh perspective, guess what is the first and biggest thing that you are admitting? That you don't know everything. That you don't have the answers for this particular situation. And that's okay. But bear in mind, before you can ever even entertain the idea of a different way of looking at things or a fresh perspective, you must first come to terms with the fact that you don't have the answers yet. Enter humility. The second thing, a fresh perspective brings about disruption. Raise your hand, or, just give me a nod if you've ever been in a situation where you've either said or heard it said that, quote unquote, this is the way we've always done things. Or this is the traditional way of doing it. Or we've always done that. As simple as that. If you ever said it or if you've ever heard it, just nod along with me for a quick second, because that is called a quote unquote status quo. And when you need change in an organization or in a family or in a relationship, what you don't want more of is the status quo. What you don't want more of is the same old, same old. What you need at that point is disruption. Disruption isn't always negative. It has a negative connotation socially, but to disrupt something is to simply change its state. Anytime you wake up out of bed, anytime you get up from sitting down for a long time, you are disrupting the state of rest or repose that your body has entered into. That's all it is. It's a change from one state to another, a disruption. You're changing what is, turning it into what could be. So a fresh perspective, secondarily, brings about disruption. And last point, most importantly, this is what everybody really cares about. A fresh perspective is almost always going to be a prerequisite for true breakthrough. Let me break that down as simply as possible. Think about any time that anyone of any note has ever done anything that truly matters for our world or for humanity or for themselves or their families. Look through the timeline that led up to that big moment, that big decision, that big sacrifice. You will almost always be able to point to an instance in which they gained a fresh perspective. Let me give you a clear example. And I'm pretty sure I've used this story before on this podcast, but I'll use it again because it's such a great one. 1954 Olympics, Roger Bannister. I'm pretty sure it's the 1954 Olympics, but it's either the early to mid 1950s. Roger Bannister was an Englishman, a young doctor in training, around 25, I think, at the time. He is the first man to break the 4-minute mile barrier. And shortly after he broke that record, 40-something days afterwards, other people were breaking that record, broke his record. His record was 3 minutes 59 point, was it 4 or 6? There we go, 0.4. I think it was 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. So 0.6 milliseconds. He broke the barrier by 0.6 milliseconds. Think about that. And nowadays we've got high schoolers breaking that record like it's nothing. It's a has-been record. So what happened? Was there a genetic mutation that happened in Roger Bannister's era where humans suddenly were able to just run faster? No. All it took was just a daring young man like himself to sit down with himself. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be with a bunch of people or with some huge focus group. It's just, you just have to ask yourself, maybe I can do this. Instead of, what if I fail? Maybe, what if I mess up? What if they judge me? Who cares? If you're here to make an impact, if you're here to change your life, if you're here to break out of the muck that you're stuck in, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Look at yourself and ask yourself some more encouraging questions, like, what if I do make it? What if I do succeed? What if I do, knock this out of the park? What's that going to feel like? And start to dream. Because it's those kinds of questions, it's those kinds of thoughts that allowed him to open the floodgates for everyone after him who broke that milestone. And that's all it took. A fresh perspective. His fresh perspective paved the way for a breakthrough in athletics and Olympic history. No one had ever done it before him, at least not recorded, before his time, before his instance of a fresh perspective. Think about any other invention made. Think about any other crazy advancement, either in science or in psychology or in theology or any other ologies. What's a eureka moment? What is an epiphany if not someone suddenly gaining or unlocking a fresh perspective? So let me run through the 3 points one more time and we'll wrap it up with the 2 quotes. Point number 1, a fresh perspective demands humility because you are admitting that you don't have all the answers. Number 2, a fresh perspective brings about disruption, so be ready for that. What I mean by that is sometimes other people may not be so open to a fresh perspective because it is disruptive. Disruption itself is not negative, but depending on someone else's quote unquote perspective, they may think that this situation being changed to something else is too uncomfortable and dipping far too deeply into the unknown that they do not want it. And therefore it becomes a negative thing for them. And therefore you become an enemy to them. So be mindful of people not being as welcome to a fresh perspective because of number 2, it brings about disruption. But guess what? Number 3, which is breakthrough, cannot happen without the prerequisite of a fresh perspective that brings about disruption of the status quo that kept things the same way they've always been anyway. So again, number 3, any and all breakthrough are almost always dependent on someone's fresh perspective. Okay, I hope I've really clarified that for you and solidified that in your mind, because there is almost no other way that you can actually get your life to the place that you want it to be. I can yip and yap all day long, till I turn, I don't know if I can ever turn blue in the face. I might turn like a shade of purple, but I doubt actively blue. Anyway, I digress. I can talk all I want, but if you yourself are unable to see not just things, but if you yourself are unable to see yourself differently, then yeah, your life is going nowhere. Take it from me, it's true. And that's not a rude thing to say. This is me trying to be real with you and trying my best, if you're sleeping right now, proverbially, to wake you up and to let you know that the control over where your life will eventually end up is not in someone else's hands. They may play roles, they may be factors, and somebody else may be controlling your 9 to 5, or somebody else may be controlling your curfew, or whatever, or wherever it is. Other people will have influence over your life to a certain extent, yes. But you, within yourself, you decide whether or not you matter. You decide whether or not your voice matters. Other people can deny you some time. Other people can deny you attention or deny you validation. But if you decide, I'm actually worthwhile, if you decide my effort means something, if you decide my dreams can possibly come true, no one can stop you forever. So ending with the 2 quotes. Prior Secretary of State, I think he was, Colin Powell, said this, General Colin Powell: always focus on the front windshield and not the rear view mirror. I think that's nice, short, and sweet, because we all know that, well, there's this interesting phenomenon where as you are driving, if you turn your head left, you tend to steer your vehicle towards the left. If you look right, you tend to favor steering right, even though you're not intending to. And why is that? It is because our bodies or our minds tend to follow the direction of our focus. And that's a very real thing in psychology as well. I do not know the actual psychological or psychiatric term, if there is such a thing, but I'm pretty sure there is. But nonetheless, it is true. This truth is also replicated in the analogy of, or the metaphor of the dark wolf and the wolf of darkness and the wolf of light, or the moon wolf or the sun wolf. I can't remember which culture really makes use of this actual example, so forgive me. But it talks about the wolves themselves don't grow by themselves. They grow and get bigger based off of how much you feed them. So if there's a wolf of life, as an example, the words you speak, if they are positive, if they are life-giving, if they are life-bringing and fostering a spirit of embracing your potential and, seeking success, not just, you're not out here ignoring the bad stuff. You acknowledge the bad stuff, but you're not just dwelling on it. Then that wolf is going to live, and the wolf of death, essentially, is going to be malnourished and be weak and less able to overtake you with its own negative thoughts. Conversely, if all you're thinking about, or if what you're mostly thinking about is how things are bad, how people hate you, or how you're weak, or how your voice doesn't matter, guess which wolf you're feeding? It's the one of death. And so which one will be stronger and more readily able to overpower you in a moment of your own, of weakness of your own will? It's that one. So again, he says, always focus on the front windshield and not the rear view mirror. Remember, guys, the only time you're looking into the rear view mirror actively is when you need to turn around and go back. So if you're not trying to reverse and correct a mistake, what you should always be doing is focusing on what's ahead, not on what's behind you. So bear that in mind. Next and final quote is by Kristen Armstrong. She says, she's an Olympic cyclist, by the way. I love big, fresh starts. The clean slates like birthdays and New Year's. But I also really like the idea that we can get up every morning and start over. I think that's beautiful because it's got nothing to do with the sometimes intimidating, huge, momentous, new horizon type moments. It doesn't always have to be a birthday or a new year or some major resolution or event. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it is good to just relish and be grateful and sit down and acknowledge the fact that, hey, I'm going to sleep tonight. And tomorrow I get to just start over and try to be better than I was today. And I can take comfort in the fact that I will do at least one thing tomorrow that I didn't do today and be proud of that. Start from there, guys. Start from the little things, and guess what? That is what will grow into the big. I hope this has been able to foster within you something akin to a fresh perspective. My name is Jason. Thank you for joining me on the TRU-U podcast, and I hope to see you, I hope for you to hear me next week. All right. I know this wasn't Friday, but I'm doing my best and trying to post every week at the very least. So here's to a more consistent schedule in the future. But right now, I'm just trying to make sure that I just post something and that it be something of value and not just filler. So not ideally, I hope this was valuable to you. I know it was valuable to me as an experience and really fun to talk about and whatnot. And I pray that you would take this and share it with somebody else that needs to hear this message as well. Okay? Have a good week, and I'll see you guys next time. You get what I mean. Thanks for listening.
Hi friends, Jason here. I want to thank you again for your time investment of listening till the end. It seriously means a lot, and I would further appreciate knowing what you think about the show through either the like button or your own comments and DMs about what impacted you the most in this particular episode or in any other. The point is, I don't want you to be shy about taking the step to communicate all that. Lastly, I invite you to stay connected to this life-giving community by following or subscribing on whichever platform you prefer to watch or listen. You'll also find more nuggets of gold sprinkled here and there by looking up @JasonPF_TRU-U on all socials. Again, that's JASONPF_TRU-U. Let's learn to think, speak, and live as our true selves together.